Hello dolls, and welcome back to another video in my 1960 to 1979 series. Today I'm breaking down the year 1968 on my journey through the 60s and 70s, where in every video I break down a new year, mainly focusing on the fashion, the music and the film, but also talking about politics and economics for a little. Make sure to subscribe to not miss out on the year 1969 coming tomorrow and the entire 1970s ahead. As always, I am mainly focusing on the US and Great Britain in these videos. It just kind of makes it easier to narrow it down because truthfully a lot happens in a full year worldwide. But we're also going to talk a little bit about Europe in general, as well as what was happening all over the world. So grab yourself a drink, get comfortable, and let me take you back on a journey to the year 1968. 1968 was a year that seemed to hold the world in its hands only to shake it to its core. It was a year of contradictions, of explosive creativity and shattering heartbreak, of rebellion and reflection, of chaos and beauty. Politically, the world was on fire. Protest against the Vietnam War intensified, the fight for civil rights reached a fever pitch, and movements for change echoed across continents. Yet even in the midst of unrest, the arts flourished. Music gave a voice to the voiceless, with artists redefining genres and capturing the era's spirit. Fashion was bold and experimental, mirroring the break of old norms and the forging of new identities. And in film, the counterculture came alive on screen, challenging traditional storytelling with groundbreaking works. 1968 became a turning point, not just for politics, but also for music, fashion, and film. A kaleidoscope of change that still resonates today. In the United States, the Vietnam War cast a long shadow, dominating the national conversation and fueling widespread protests. The Tet Offensive in January shattered illusions of American dominance, amplifying anti-war sentiment and deepening public distrust of the government. The year's protests reached a fever pitch at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where clashes between demonstrators and police became a televised symbol of the nation's division. The civil rights movement endured an unimaginable loss in 1968. When in April, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, it was a devastating blow to the struggle for racial equality, sparking riots in over 100 cities all across America. Just 2 months later, the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, a symbol of hope for many, deepened the sense of national grief. Yet, these tragedies galvanized movements for justice, with King's legacy inspiring renewed commitment to progress. Globally, revolutionary energy surged. In France, the May protests brought students and workers together in a massive strike that nearly paralyzed the country, challenging traditional power structures. In Czechoslovakia, the Prague Spring offered a fleeting vision of liberal reform before Soviets' tanks crushed the movement. Meanwhile, Mexico City, before witness to both the triumph of the Olympic Games and the tragedy of the Tlatelolco massacre, I'm sorry I probably said that wrong, where student protesters were brutally suppressed. Even amidst the chaos, humanity's potential for innovation and unity took a center stage. NASA's Apollo 7 and Apollo 8 missions were milestones in the space race, with Apollo 8 becoming the first manned spacecraft to orbit the moon. The broadcast of Earthrise from space offered a unifying vision of our planet, igniting a burgeoning environmental consciousness. So let's quickly talk about economics. In the late 1960s, more and more women were joining the workforce, although they were still severely underpaid. Throughout this entire series, I'm comparing the price of 3 key items: a loaf of bread, a movie ticket, and a new house, as well as the average household income in America. In 1968, a bread was about 25 cents, a movie ticket would set you back around $1.31, a new house was around $14,960, while the yearly income was somewhere around $7,850. In early 1968, fashion for both women and men reflected a dynamic mix of innovation, individuality, and rebellion against conventional norms. A key trend for women became the rise of the coat dress. Praised for its modern and cohesive aesthetic, it became a popular choice for transitioning between seasons, offering a younger, more polished alternative to the traditional suit. Designers like Jean Muir led the way, creating beautifully tailored pieces in exclusive fabrics such as khaki-colored corded wool. Muir's designs, known for their elegance and unique details, epitomized haute boutique style and gained international acclaim. Women's fashion embraced bold ethnic prints and vibrant floral patterns, signaling a broader interest in global influences. Accessories like colorful jewelry became statement pieces, while high-waisted pants offered a sleek yet versatile alternative to skirts. Hairstyles remained simple but striking, with long straight locks becoming the hallmark of the modern, free-spirited woman. In 1968, Biba solidified its place in London's fashion scene, moving to a lavish new store in Kensington High Street. The boutique, founded by Barbara Hulanicki, became a cultural hub, reflecting the youthquake movement and the 1960s counterculture. Known for its mix of vintage glamour and modern style, Biba offered mini dresses, bold patterns, and affordable chic, attracting both the young and celebrities like Twiggy. Its store, designed in a glamorous Art Deco style, became a hotspot for fashion-forward youth, embodying the free-spirited, rebellious spirit of the time. Men's fashion also saw a shift towards individuality and experimentation. Turtlenecks and narrow jackets brought a sophisticated edge, while wide-legged pants offered a dramatic silhouette. Pinstriped suits and vests remained staples for those seeking a redefined yet slightly unconventional look. This eclectic mix of styles symbolized a breaking away from rigid tradition, with men embracing bold choices and softer tailoring. In both women's and men's wardrobes, 1968 was a year of playful contrast and creative expression, blending functionality with artistic flair. The era's fashion trends captured the growing cultural push towards self-expression and liberation, laying the groundwork for the transformative styles of the 1970s. The late 1960s saw a shift towards bohemian fashion, and Sharon Tate was one of the icons for this style. Known for her effortlessly chic and youthful style, her look combined a mix of Hollywood glamour with the bohemian spirit that defined much of the decade. She was often seen as a symbol of the epitome of 1960s beauty, with her blonde hair, delicate features, and sun-kissed skin, which she complemented with a wardrobe that was simultaneously fashionable and approachable. One of the most notable aspects of Sharon Tate's fashion was her ability to blend high fashion with a relaxed California lifestyle. She wore everything from chic shift dresses to mod-inspired ensembles, often accessorized with statement pieces like oversized sunglasses and chunky jewelry. Her style was a blend of both glamour and ease, making her a muse for designers and a sought-after face for the fashion magazines. Her look was youthful and feminine, but also playful, embodying the spirit of the late 1960s, where fashion became more liberated and experimental. Sharon Tate's wedding dress perfectly encapsulates the essence of 1968 style, blending both the mod and bohemian influences that defined the era. The dress, an ivory silk mini with a high collar, had a youthful, fresh, and playful quality that was in line with the trends of the late 1960s. The mini length was a bold departure from traditional bridal wear, symbolizing the shift away from rigid fashion norms and towards more liberated and experimental looks, characteristics of the decade. This reflected the growing popularity of mini dresses and mod fashion, which emphasized youthfulness and energy. The intricate detailing of the dress, Juliet sleeves, and fabric-covered buttons echoed the whimsical romantic elements that were also trending in 1968. Influenced by both Victorian and bohemian styles, the raised waistline added a feminine touch while maintaining a modern and streamlined silhouette. The dress simplicity in its ivory silk moire fabric and minimalistic design reflected the movement towards more understated yet elegant bridal fashion that stood in stark contrast to the more elaborate and formal gowns of the previous decade. Sharon's coiled hairdo with scattered flowers and bows further emphasized the ethereal, free-spirited vibe that was pervasive in 1968. Her hair and dress, paired with the mod-inspired suit worn by Roman Polanski, were a perfect reflection of the cultural shifts of the time, where high fashion merged with the emerging youth-driven subcultures. Their wedding, with its star-studded after-party at the Playboy Club, was a quintessential example of the swinging 60s, embodying both glamour and the progressive, carefree attitude that characterized the era. Deborah Tate, Sharon's sister, noted the following when the dress was auctioned at Julien's a couple of years ago. Alba, a custom designer of the Hollywood's elite in the 1960s, claimed among her many clients the glamorous Elizabeth Taylor. My equally glamorous sister Sharon sought the services of Alba in advance of a variety of special occasions, including the Golden Globes and, her most important event, her wedding. Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski were the true embodiment of the swinging 60s on their wedding day. The wedding ceremony was held at the Chelsea Registry and followed by a star-studded after-party at the Playboy Club, with guests that included John and Juliet Mills, Lawrence Harvey, John Collins, Anthony Newley, Barbara Perkins, Candice Bergen, Michael Caine, James Fox, the Mamas and the Papas, Jim Morrison, and Terry Downs. Later, baby blue velvet ribbons and bows were added to the dress, and if the description of that dress seems kind of familiar at this point, it is because I am wearing it. No, I did not get the one that was auctioned at Julian's for $50,000. I got this one made and tailored after Sharon's original wedding dress, and I wore it for my own wedding 6 months ago. I love this dress. When I first saw it, I fell in love with it, and my dear friend Coco, who has a fashion brand called The Belated Beatnik, offered to make me this dress. It's just so perfect, and because Sharon and Roman's wedding was all over the news in 1968, I felt like it was the perfect occasion to wear it again. I feel like this dress perfectly captures the fashion styles of the late 1960s, that kind of mixture between the short mott styles and the medieval and Victorian revival with these more extravagant sleeves and the dreamy detailing. I adore this dress, and for me it's the true embodiment of late 1960s glamour. In culture, 1968's upheaval found reflection and release in music, film, and fashion. The Beatles released the White Album, a kaleidoscope of sound that captured both the fracturing of the band and the spirit of experimentation that defined the era. Songs like Revolution mirrored the political unrest, while tracks like Blackbird poignantly addressed themes of justice. 1968 also saw the Beatles embarking on a new business venture, the Apple Boutique. The launch party held on December 5th in 1967 was a star-studded affair attended by John Lennon, George Harrison, and many of London's most fashionable figures. Inside, the likes of Keith Moon, Eric Clapton, Cilla Black, and Twiggy enjoyed apple juice and apples, while outside it was clear that the Beatles had made their mark. The 18th century building at the corner of Baker Street and Paddington Street was transformed by the Dutch art collective The Fool, who created a striking psychedelic mural. The surrounding Georgian houses were overwhelmed by a color quake that spread through the city of Westminster, making the area look dramatically different from its usual surroundings. At the Apple Boutique, one could purchase a range of electric and vibrant items that reflected the countercultural and artistic ethos of the Beatles and their collaboration with the Fool Art Collective. The boutique was a haven for avant-garde bohemian and psychedelic fashion. Shoppers could buy bold, colorful, and unconventional clothing such as paisley prints, embroidered suits, tunics, bell-bottoms, maxi skirts, and coats with unique designs. Many of the clothes were designed with an eye toward the free-spirited and often extravagant fashion tastes of the 1960s counterculture. The Apple Boutique truly was a reflection of the ethos of the time, where fashion, art, and music intertwined in a way that was both avant-garde and playful. However, the shop's uniqueness and popularity didn't really last long, partly due to the mismanagement, and they also had a big issue with people stealing, as well as the fact that the Beatles and their friends would just kind of go in and take whatever they wanted without anyone ever considering that in order to keep this thing going, you would actually need to make a little bit of money at least. So unfortunately, not even a full year after its opening in December of 1967, the Beatles' Apple Boutique had to close its doors. In 1968, music was marked by bold experimentation, genre blending, and a shift towards more politically charged lyrics. Besides the Beatles, several iconic albums and musicians defined the year. The Rolling Stones released Beggar's Banquet, with tracks like Sympathy for the Devil marking a return to their blues roots and exploring darker, more provocative themes. Aretha Franklin continued to dominate soul music, releasing the album Lady Soul, which featured timeless hits like Chain of Fool and A Natural Woman. Jimi Hendrix captivated audiences with his groundbreaking guitar work on Electric Ladyland, merging rock, blues, and psychedelia. Bob Dylan began moving away from his protest roots with John Wesley Harding, showcasing a quieter, more introspective sound. On the more experimental side, Pink Floyd released A Saucerful of Secrets, beginning their transition into progressive rock. The Doors also captured the moments with Waiting for the Sun, blending psychedelic rock with poetic lyrics. Film in 1968 was a year of bold experimentation and social commentary, capturing the changing moods of the time. Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey broke new grounds in cinematic storytelling. With its pioneering visuals and philosophical themes, it explored humanity's place in the universe, blending cutting-edge technology with an existential exploration of space and time. It became a landmark in both science fiction and filmmaking. In stark contrast, Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski, tapped into the era's growing societal anxieties. The film's chilling portrayal of paranoia and control reflected a sense of distrust in authority and fear of the unknown that pervaded the 1960s. Its psychological horror and unsettling atmosphere captured the mood of a world teetering on the edge of social upheaval. Meanwhile, Funny Girl brought levity and glamour to the screen. Barbra Streisand's star-making turn as Fanny Brice earned her widespread acclaim, providing an antidote to the darker cultural tones of the time. The film was a showcase of her extraordinary talent and added a touch of glitz to a turbulent year. Another significant film of 1968 was Wonderwall, directed by Joe Massett. This psychedelic and visually striking film starred Jane Birkin and introduced a blend of art, fashion, and music. With its avant-garde sensibility and music written by George Harrison, Wonderwall mirrored the cultural experimentation of the late 1960s and added to the era's cinematic diversity. Its connection to the Beatles, with George Harrison composing the soundtrack, also underscored the band's influence on both music and film during the time. Together, these films reflected the vibrant contrast of the year 1968. Groundbreaking innovation, psychological tensions, glamorous escapism, and an ever-expanding cultural boundary. So, what does 1968 really add up to? It was a year of profound contrasts, where upheaval and hope collided. It was a time when the world seemed on the brink of transformation, with voices demanding change, amidst the backdrop of political strife and cultural revolutions. From the music that defined the era to the fashion that broke away from tradition, 1968 was a testament to resilience, creativity, and a relentless drive for a better future. As the year closed, the seeds of a new era had been sown, and its echoes would continue to reverberate through history. Tomorrow we'll take a look at 1969, the year that brought the moon landing, the Woodstock Festival, and brought the swinging 60s decade to a close. So that is it for 1968. What a year, and what a great occasion to pull out my wedding dress again. I cannot end this video before trying this tea. This is Red Bush and vanilla, and I know this flavor really well. It's one of my mom's all-time favorites. I grew up drinking this so much. I know that I love it. It's still as good as ever. It's so soothing and nice. It only has the slightest hint of vanilla, but I really like it, and the smell reminds me so much of the place where I used to live with my mom. So that is it for 1968. Let me know what you thought. Please leave a comment down below telling me if there's anything I missed, anything you felt like was also important to note about this year. This once again was a year where so much happened that I couldn't possibly fit it into one video. So I really hope that this kind of worked. I've decided going forward that I would take out several aspects and go a little more into detail. Like, for example, I talked about Sharon Tate a lot in this video. She might not come up in the next video, and she might have not been there the past couple of videos, but just so you know, she was obviously around. That goes for so many people. Patti Boyd, the Beatles, their girlfriends, their wives. I just cannot talk about every single aspect in every single video. And with these videos, I kind of want to give you an overview of the year and not go too much into detail about a single topic. But if there's anything in these videos that you're ever really interested in, let me know. I would love to do some more research and tell you about that specific thing you're interested in. If you enjoyed the video, I would love you to give it a thumbs up and maybe even share it with a friend. It supports me, it supports the channel, and it would truly mean the world. Make sure to subscribe to not miss out on 1969 coming tomorrow, the final year of the 1960s. I cannot believe how far we've already made it. That is so wild to me. We are already almost through the entire 60s, but we still have the entire 1970s ahead of us, and I'm so truly excited because I feel like I know a lot more about the 1960s than I know about the 1970s, so it will be interesting for me, especially as I've done the research on the late 1970s, a time that I didn't know that much about and really began to love throughout this research process. I think it is so interesting because I feel the most home in the mid-60s to the mid-1970s. I feel like especially the mid and late 1960s is something I know a lot about. But for me, researching the early 60s and the late 1970s was so interesting because there was so much that I had no idea about. I hope you have a beautiful day. Go out, enjoy the sunshine, take yourself some time to focus on you and your mental health today, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, dolls!